Welcome to the Inside College Soccer Podcast, brought to you by Sports Recruiting USA, the college soccer recruiting experts. Now, here's your host, Chris Cousins.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Chris Cousins, and I'm the founder of Sports Recruiting USA, and I'm, well, do we call it a host, interviewee, or just someone on the phone or Skype chatting to people? But really, really excited to launch this podcast. It's been a long time in the making, and we've said for years, every time we speak to people, we're speaking to people daily in the world of soccer, college soccer, really, really exciting, interesting people. And I've always said, I wish we could record that conversation. So much knowledge there we could share with people. So yeah, you've guessed it. We've started recording it, all with permission, of course. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. So we have our first guest, and it couldn't be any more legendary if we tried, I guess. He's the godfather of college soccer, in many people's opinions. He's humble. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever spoken to and met. So really privileged to introduce that. It was Bobby Clark, the national champion winning coach, Notre Dame legend. He's even an Aberdeen Hall of Famer. Oh yeah, and he's played in a World Cup and played for Scotland many times with 800 league appearances throughout his career. He's coached the New Zealand national team. He's worked in many, many different countries. So unfortunately, we had to do the interview over the internet. We planned on visiting him in his Scottish home. I'm really excited to visit that part of the world, but because of schedule clashes and he's just about to fly out to Washington to be with his son, Jamie Clark, who's the head coach at the University of Washington for the rest of the season. So I thought, right, it's one of them things. We're just going to have to do it over the internet. It took a little while to get used to it. Took probably a little time to find out how to log on, and myself as well. So we finally got there. So yeah, we recorded it. We realised the audio is not great. It's one of them things. It's our first podcast. We've tried to make it as good as possible, but it's definitely listenable. if that's the right word to use. But yeah, so we know for next time, and we'll make sure things are a lot better. But there's some real gold in this chat we've had with Bobby. He gives his opinions on a number of things. Tells us about his career, and stuff like the 10-month season, for example. He gives his opinion on that, how to get recruited. He gives his insight into how he recruited during his time as a college coach. So if you're a parent looking to get your child recruited, some really good advice there. One thing I would ask, if you don't mind, obviously we want to do more of these podcasts, and we've got a few people lined up already. But if there's no one going to listen to it, then obviously it's kind of pointless. But we would love it if you could obviously subscribe, leave a review, be honest, send us a message, DM. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email, write us a letter, whichever works. So yeah. So sorry. So when the podcast interview starts, I'll stop talking shortly. It does start kind of abruptly. But that's because we were chatting about just small talk, really, like where he lives, golf, keeping fit, and stuff like that. But we kind of started talking about some certain things. I was thinking, okay, that's really interesting for this podcast. So I've left out the bit before that, which is not really relevant. So it goes straight into talking about all the players that he's had turn professional during his time as a college coach. So it does start really abruptly, but just give it 20 seconds, you'll get into the flow of it. So we know for next time to have like a real starting point, welcomes, hellos, and stuff like that. But this one, unfortunately, we can't go back and ask him to do it again because right now he's on a flight to the other side of America. To America, sorry, the other side of the world. So, right, that's enough for me. So let's head straight into the legend that is Bobby Clark.
I put a lot of my guys that might go to the MLS. We get them; they come in the summer, so I don't know. Every kid that's left either any of the place, they've all got their degrees. I think that's not one that we must now have put Notre Dame over 40, and a few at Stanford as well. So into the MLS, and some of them are in just for a cup of tea. They didn't last very long, but a lot of them have had good careers. And they all had their degrees. And then a couple of the Stanford boys actually came to Ryan Nelson.
Yeah.
You know Ryan.
New Zealand player, yeah.
Yeah, he was. He had about a 9-year career. He was a captain of Blackburn Rovers for the Premier League for a long while. Simon Elliott. Simon is he's coaching at Sac Republic just now. He's the head coach there. But Simon was also he played for Fulham, and he started in the midfield for Fulham right up until he got a really bad injury, 5 surgeries on an ankle when he was with Fulham. They were pre-season in Austria, and he did something to his ankle after he was there for half a year, and then he never really played after that properly.
It shows you, an injury can just kill you. Like
No, they were good, but the New Zealand boys I took over, I knew them all because I had coached in New Zealand for
the national team, right?
For 2 years. But the nice thing when I was working, I was the national team coach, but I also worked with the Olympics, so that was their under 23s, and then I had their was under 21. I think it was 23s then anyway, and then I worked with their 20s. Then I worked with their 17s because their 17s we brought them into residency for the last 6 months before the qualifying, and it was great. So I was coaching, so I knew every kid in New Zealand. If I would have started the New Zealand kids coming over at that time, you started bringing them. I sent one to Dartmouth, one to Harvard, and then when I came over, obviously I took who I thought I took Simon first, and then. It was interesting with Ryan Nelson because I would have liked to take Ryan, obviously, but how I did it was Jamie was playing at North Carolina, and Elmer Bolowich was the coach because I had been in New Zealand, and I didn't like when I came back to Stanford taking Jamie because Jamie he had played every game as a freshman, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't like taking him, but Jamie wanted to come. So what I said to Elmer, I'll give you this guy. Who was very similar, I thought, to Jamie at that time. He was in our under-20s, was Ryan Nelson.
Yeah.
And so Elmer, I said, I think you'll be really happy with this guy, because I said, I would love to have him as well. Anyway, Elmer got him over, but they hadn't checked the classes he had taken. It's actually his SATs were okay. Yeah. But he hadn't taken the required, you have to have so many English, your core courses, exactly. So he hadn't taken all the, but that was their fault. They should have checked that out. He could have done it over the summer. He could have done it, and he was deemed ineligible. So when Elmer called me, I said, what do we do with him? I said, well, what? He said, the only thing, we put him to a Division 3 school for a year and then take him over. And Elmer said, but he's been deemed ineligible. I can't do that. I says, where can we put him to? I think we put him to one of the local, what was it? It was a Division 3 school right beside UNC.
Yeah.
It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, he went there and I said, will you take him? He said, well, I can't take him. And I said, well, I said, go there for 2 years and do really well academically, and I'll take you to Stanford, because Elmer couldn't take him back. So I end up getting Jamie and him. But at least Elmer knows I gave him a really...
Yeah, good tactic. Talk about all them scandals, the Bobby Clark one.
yeah. No, I told him that. I said he'll know he's a really good player. And he went, Ryan went, he took the Division 3, Greensboro College. College.
Yeah.
He went to Greensboro College, and he took them to the Final Four at Division 3. And then he came. He was a very, very good player.
What's Ryan doing now then? He's obviously he went to Fulham as well. I'm sure he did.
I think he's an agent. I think he's an agent somewhere. He's involved. I think it's one of these where these sort of own players. I don't know how all these things work nowadays, but he has quite a few. The company he's with has quite a few players. I mean, he would be good. I mean, I was disappointed he didn't get a better. He had a tough time. He came to Toronto as a coach, and I think he would have been a very good coach.
Yeah.
But somehow Toronto was going through a lot of funny times at that time. So,
Yeah.
but he's good. So anyway, but there was a few guys that have gone over and played in different places. So, but it's hard for British for guys to get into Britain. That's the hard thing. I mean, John's, because his mum and dad are both Irish. You know, I mean, John's hardly ever been in Ireland. I don't know if he's ever played in Ireland. I mean, John's. I think he went. The dad was working in Jamaica. Dad worked for Diageo for Guinness.
Okay.
And then he came over. And he was in. I think he was in Connecticut for about from between. He was about 8 and 12. And then they went to Singapore, the family. And then he came back. He had 1 year in England. And I think he played for England schoolboys when he was in England, even, and then they came back to Connecticut. So that's where I found him.
To the sorry to interrupt. Whatever happened to the It was a name. He played for the Irish national team when they played a friendly. I'm sure he was with you.
Joe Lapira.
The one, yeah. What happened to him?
Joe's working in Washington D.C. now.
Right.
Yeah, so I think he's doing quite well. Joe's I think he gets married shortly, so Joe's. I mean, Joe's. He'd never been to Ireland either. His mum was Irish. His dad, actually, I think was American, but originally from Malta.
Right.
They were from down Louisiana. And he came to camp. That's when John came to camp. That's when I saw John at camp, and so Joe was National Player of the Year. He had one other recruiting letter. That's all he said. 2 recruiting letters. One from.
So in terms of recruiting, did you actually actively go out looking recruiting, or was it just these not chance players? That's probably the wrong way to do it. But did you kind of I don't know how to say it. Did you kind of get a trusted network of people that kind of fed you the players, or did you go out as scouting at all different events or stuff like that? Because now, there's so many tournaments and showcases everywhere. It's kind of everyone congregates to certain ones, and it's kind of a lot of players are kind of getting missed out because of it. But how do you do it?
Well, I always how I did it was our summer camp was huge. I mean, our team that won the national championship, 8 of the starters were camp kids.
Wow.
I really took the camps very seriously. I didn't advertise them. I just sent information to the kids that I liked. And then you've got to open it to everybody. You know what I'm saying? So, but we really we sent it to, and they would sell out. And I had a lot of good coaches. I always took really other good coaches, about 12. We had 12 to 15 coaches, and we would only take. I would make sure I only had enough for 8 teams, because one time they were going so much, we took 12 squads in. That'd be 12 times roughly about 15 plus goalkeepers. So that's about 180 plus. So I never went. I could have gone more, but I never. The year I went to 12, Christian Roldan was there, and we missed him.
Wow.
I didn't see his team play the way it worked over the 4 days. And I somehow missed Christian. And I remember it was Jamie called me up. Nobody had picked Christian Roldan up. This was
Why do you think?
I don't know. He did come on. He did play in the All-Star game at the camp, and he did come on. He came on as a sub and he scored a goal. I do remember, I had that down in my notes, but somehow I hadn't got to know him. Because what you like, at camp you can really get to know kids.
Yeah.
So I found that a really good way to fight kids. But I also loved going to tournaments. And as you see, all the coaches congregate around where they think the good players are. But it's amazing if you actually just go and fight and go to a less known game. You usually go to somebody it's written to you, and you go. It's amazing but you've got to trust your eye.
Yeah, but you must get a lot. You must get, well, at the time, hundreds of emails a week, or if not day. And then people, how do you like decipher who to go watch at these tournaments? The manpower, it's unbelievable what you need, really.
You just put them all in your database, and you link them all. In the database, you can pull up all the tournaments. You list all the tournaments you're going to attend, and you take any of them that are there. So when you're going to that tournament, you pull it up, and you find all the guys that are there. And then if it's three of us go to the tournament, I love to see the kids myself.
Yeah, of course.
After the first day, or you'll say, well, who did you see? Blah 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 blah. We go through them, and then you say, who have we got to see again? And then obviously I've got to see the ones again if it's someone we liked, if it's one of the other boys. So I always had very good, assistant coaches. I had some terrific. I mean, obviously Jamie and Chad were both assistants for me. Brian Weiss, was there. BJ Craig.
You have to trust them as well.
You've got to trust them, but there again, you eventually have got to go and see them, because you can't blame them. And we found so many under the radar, guys. I think that was one of the things that I think we
Where
did.
did you find them then? So you say under the radar guys, you mean people who've just seen randomly, or these guys that email you? What would you?
Well, it's just guys you go. Remember Roger Levesque? Do you remember? Maybe you do.
I don't know how I know.
He became a cult hero at Seattle. He played for Seattle a few years ago, but he played for me at Stanford. But I remember the reason I really went to see him, he's from Maine.
Yeah, wow.
And I remember looking at this. He sent me a handwritten letter. It was the days before computers were big. He just lovely handwritten letter with press cuttings and clips from high school games in Maine. So I liked the letter, and so I took them in actually to Steve Swanson. Steve was our women's coach at Stanford at the time. I said, Steve, look at that picture and tell me what you see. And he looked at it and read it. He says, they're all wooden players from Maine. I says, no, but look at that one. And he goes, I says, no, he's not wooden, is he? And because Swanee, I said, I'm going to go and see this kid. So I went to see them at the club regionals in, I don't know where, they were playing Delco from Philadelphia. I remember that. They lost 5-0. But I said, I like this kid. I'm going to go back to see him again. So I go back and see him again. Anyway, I call him up. Nobody else was recruiting him, I think, except Harvard. And he could also play basketball maybe at Harvard. And I said, look, if you come to Stanford, you possibly won't play your first year. We'll take you in, give you a roster spot, and we'll see where it takes you. And I remember through pre-season, Brian Weiss was with me. Brian was played for me at Dartmouth, and then came with me to Stanford and came with me to Notre Dame before he went to Georgetown. But it's funny. I said to Brian, I says, this kid's going to help us this year. And here's a kid from Maine that nobody else really knew about.
His academics were good, right?
Very good.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Number one in his class. And, but it's a lot of guys. But you've got to trust your eye.
Yeah.
And that's where I always felt, Chris, that you've got to go and you see a kid from Maine. And actually, when I saw him from Maine, there's another kid from Maine called Aaron Maines. And I'm saying, he's good. So I took Roger, but I also took Aaron for the next year. He was a year younger.
Well, there you go. It's just like by chance. Like everyone asks us all the time about these. Like, what's the best way to get my kid recruited? And we're like, there isn't a straight answer. And you've just given an example there of why there isn't a straight answer. It's by chance and stuff like that. So if you, for example, with Jamie, let's say Jamie's is a freshman in high school, how would you get him recruited as a parent? Like, what would you do now different, knowing everything that you know?
Well, Jamie's coming from New Hampshire at that time. He's playing New Hampshire, so I know a lot of folk. But Jamie was a good player. He played in the ODP. It was the ODP. It was there, and then he was in the regional ODP as well. So that got him, a start. And he was a good. I mean, they had a good high school team. I know it was New Hampshire soccer, but it was his high school team when he was there. They were in the state final all 4 years. And they won it his last 3 years. In fact, they never lost a game their last 2 years. So he had a few, options. Jamie was. So I never really pushed it. He would be the state All-American or whatever they come.
So you had an easy kid to get recruited, but let's imagine just not a regular kid, but a kid who's decent, who wants to play in college. Imagine that's what's on your hands now. What would you do?
Well, I always tell them, funny, because I often get people, I help kids, just people call me up and say, and I always just tell them what I think are good colleges for them. It's hard because I don't really know them. If I don't really know them as players and as people, but I always say, you've got to, you send out your letters, and then you've got to listen, I think, to how people respond, and you've got to feel you've got to get some love, because I think it's the same as even one of the hard things about the draft, the MLS draft. A lot of MLS teams just pick college players because they've got a slot and they should look at them.
And now they're passing on them as well. If you notice, last few years,
yeah. I think it's far better, when you're a young player, that somebody like one of the pro teams likes you, but they don't, because so you at the end of the day, if you're leaving college, instead of going into a draft the way it is, that people, they come and look for you. They'll look at college games and they say, I like that kid, the other kid, Chris Cousins, and I like him, so I'm going to call him. The way I do it, when I'm recruiting, we don't get draft players. When I was, I actually like the players, and I actually get to like these guys, and the ones I like, once I like them, I sign them, and that's the great thing. I think it's really tough because a lot of kids end up going into the MLS, never really get a serious look because they didn't really have a hole. They didn't really looking for that player. They were just taking them. They'll use them as a practice player through their pre-season, and then they'll. The only thing is now that they get a little better chance. A lot of the teams have a USL team, so it gives them another look, and maybe they'll come through. But you want to be. I think you want to be wanted. I think that's the one thing I always say. I think when I was making my decision to turn pro, I was playing with Queen's Park in the Scottish Second Division. And there's a lot of people, I was in the Scottish under-18 youth teams and all that kind of stuff while I was playing with Queen's Park, and even went away with the under-21s when I was still quite young. And a lot of clubs, you had like Chelsea's and Tottenham Hotspur. I remember the first one was actually Cardiff City. Jimmy Schooler was the coach. Okay. But I wanted to finish at college as well, so that was important to me. But even your Rangers, but they were all just coming to you because they'd heard about you.
Yeah.
And I went to Aberdeen because Eddie Turnbull, he had been my coach at Queen's Park.
Ah, okay.
So the reason I went there, and folk would have said, because Aberdeen weren't a very good team at that time, they were around about the bottom of the old 18 club league, and they just fired their previous manager, and Eddie had left. It would be the March of the year, and everybody thought you were, well, it's a funny choice when you could have gone to some of the other. But I said, well, I chose it because it was, and he, first of all, he would let me finish at college. I think that was important. And I thought that he wanted me. He really wanted me. I was going to, because when I went in there, I would only be 19 when I would sign there, and pretty well started right away. He sold John Ogson, who had been the starting goalkeeper. He sold him to Liverpool. John went there as a backup, but I knew that Eddie was signing me for the first team, so I was playing first team football when I was 19, well, I mean, obviously, and I was getting a chance. Somebody that believed in you, and it's the same as I don't know when you send I think if a kid plays in a tournament, he's got to sort of evaluate the responses he gets from people, and you want to follow up all the leads that you get. If people call you or write you from the tournament, you've obviously got to do your groundwork before send it out to the places that you would like. But then after it, you've got to really listen carefully to the way that people respond after having watched you. And you'll get a lot of people that you hadn't written to that maybe liked you. And you hope that and you've just got to evaluate that. And I think once people respond to you, you've got to that's when you make some visits. And I think it's a bit hard, when you come around just doing cold calling. You don't want a cold call. I think you want to, and I think you also, I think the kids, I mean, what do I do when I look for a player? When I go and watch, I say the first thing I look at and say, can this kid play for me at Notre Dame? Is he good enough? And I have a grading scale for them all. It was blue chip. Blue chip, a 1+, a 1, you go down the line to a 5. I don't think I ever gave any kid a 5, but it was a blue chip. If he's a blue chip, I like him. So he's good. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to find out about his academics, because that was going to be very important. Yeah. All the schools I had been at, I had to find out their academics. And then I think so. The other thing that comes into it is money. And I've got to, you've got, we had 9.9 scholarships, and that doesn't go too far, really. Yeah. So you've got to find out. The other thing we had was we didn't have any academic money at any of the schools.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought you would.
So you couldn't join them.
Yeah, stack them. Yeah.
Because that was, if you can stack them, that would have made life awful easy. But we had financial aid. So the next thing I would find out, what's the parent's situation? Is money going to be a factor? Because I mean, several people, that I got that were really good players. They were offered full rides at some schools, and all I could do was give them 50%.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever gave anyone more than 70. That was always my top limit. Wow. I never gave anyone more than 10. But I reckon if you were giving 70% to a Notre Dame degree, that was a pretty good.
Yeah, so you've got a few factors on you: the money, academics, ability, and human interaction. I guess, personalities.
And you couldn't mix financifinancial aid with athletic money. Well, you could. I did that because when I went to Stanford, we only had 3 scholarships.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, we went to the NCAA finals on 5 scholarships.
How did you do that? Can I
write it down? Then you could stack it, because you could up to 9.9. I could give folk. I could give folk a little bit. So I'd get, obviously, if you only get 5 scholarships, you give them a bit, and then if they get earn financial aid, you could add it on up until you came up to 9.9. But obviously, if you're on 9.9, you can't mix them. You couldn't mix financial aid and athletic aid. So you were really pretty. It was really pretty tight. But I'd always find out, and some of the best players I ever had, I mean, I would put them on guys that went on into the pros. I would get them. I would put them on need-based aid for the first 2 years, and then I could give them. You if they get a decent need-based aid for 2 years, and then you could put them on a full for the last 2 years. So they only really cost you 50% of scholarships over 4 years. But you could they did need-based, and so they had to pay a little bit the first 2 years. And that was I thought that was a really good way, because obviously the cost of going to college goes up each year. So they were getting the last 2 years paid, but the first 2 years they were on their need-based. And the need-based was pretty accurate to what the family could afford, So
did you struggle with the international players then? Obviously, because you never really took any international players, really, did you?
No, not really. The ones I had that somehow I'd done it. Well, the ones I had at Stanford were all was Nelly. Nelly would have been on. I think I took care of his tuition.
Yeah.
So he had to pay for room and board. I did the same puzzle with Simon.
Okay, that's generous.
And then the two other ones, I think I gave them. I gave one tuition, and one I only gave 10,000 to. So I took 4 over because when I had been in I'd been there, and I was in New Zealand for 2 years, and I knew every kid in New Zealand, but I knew nobody. When I came back, I knew nobody in America. If you're away for 2 years,
yeah,
you don't know any of the juniors or the seniors because you were never looking. So I knew none of them. So the obvious place for me to go was New Zealand. When I had worked with their under 17s and their under 20s, but we didn't have a lot of money at Stanford at the time, So but I looked after to a degree, It was. I mean, when Nelly would have gone to Greensboro College, he would just have been on. It would have been academic and need-based, possibly. So he I don't know how, but he wanted to come. I'd put him on that. I always wanted Nelly, but obviously it was going to be difficult. I remember there's another boy I gave to Elmer, but he ended up signing pro and played in Holland for about 12 years. Ivan Visilic. But he didn't. He just opted to go. He was in the. He was. I gave him his first cap for New Zealand when he was 17. Actually, he was a very good. He would have been a terrific college player, but he opted to go pro. So that was it.
So in terms of so in terms of international players, well, first of all, you did. Have you noticed there's the increase of international players when it to come to the US? Obviously, over the last since I was in 2003, 4, whatever, but now, because of social media, people seeing this thing, and I go into professional clubs all the time, and it's becoming Plan B, and it never was like that before. It's kind of like America. Why are you going to America? But now it's kind of Plan B, degree and study. But then, obviously, from the coach's point of view, there's just agencies and players hounding you. You've obviously got the US to deal with, then you've got internationally to deal with. You obviously have to deal with that. How did you deal with it?
Yeah, I didn't go the foreign route because I always felt I could get enough. I remember I took Dartmouth over to Scotland when you used to be able to take them in August. So I took Dartmouth over, I took Stanford over, I took Notre Dame over. And that was the last time I took them over would be because then they changed the rules that you couldn't take teams over a month before the start of your season. So when I took them over then it was in May. And there was no use going to Scotland or England in May.
Yeah.
But we'd come over here and honestly we never lost a game. We'd play Aberdeen's under 21s and we drew the first twice with Dartmouth and with Stanford, and we played them the last time with Notre Dame and beat them 2-0. We played Dundee United, and it's funny because at the end of the game, the guys were always impressed with the way we played, and they would all come up and they'd want to come. And it's funny, the only ones I would have taken out their youth teams or out their under 21 teams would have been the guys they wanted. And that was the way I felt. I felt when I looked at their players, I said, well, these are the ones that are, their other players are quite good.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, I can get as good players as that, in America, and it won't cost me very much.
The British kids, you try and tell them that, they're like, nah. No, I'm better than American, but then you're just backing up exactly what I tell people.
No. We were much better, actually. I mean, we would play semi-pro teams, like the Highland League, and you beat them 4-0. We'd beat these sort of what they call it's junior football in Scotland. It's men. I mean, we beat the league champions from the previous year 5-1, and we beat one of the other stronger teams in Aberdeen, Banks of Dee. We beat them 8-1, and I mean they were. And well, the American kids are really fit and they can play. And don't get me wrong, when you play Aberdeen's under 21 team, how many of their players are going to make their first team?
Yeah, well, if any, really, it just depends.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, they're not over special. It's kind of like your team in a fun. I mean, that was a good. I mean, when we played their under 21 teams, that was a good game, for our college level. I think if we come in this year, I think Notre Dame, Chad took them over and they played. They played 3 games.
I remember. I know Stanford came over last year and played QPR, Bradford, and Fulham, and beat them all convincingly. 23s as well.
Yes. Well, I think that's what Notre Dame played Derby. I think it was Bradford. Then it was some combination team. I think
it was the player centre one. Yeah.
Wales Centre. Wales Centre. And I think they win 2 and tied 1 or. But they're more than capable of it, and there's no. Is there any foreign players? Well, there's the one foreign player that's on at Notre Dame just now is Felicien Dumas.
Yeah,
and Felicien would be he played with John in Singapore. And so when John came over the first year to camp, Felicien came the next year to camp.
Yeah,
that's where we saw him. I saw him at camp, and Felicien, his dad's French and his mum's actually Japanese, so he's good actually. He's left-footed. He's good. I think he'd be one that would be worth. And the only other one, but he's not the big goalie, but he's American. His mum's American, but his dad actually came over to Akron to play many years ago. So his dad's Scottish.
All right.
So big Duncan Turnbull. So Duncan's I don't know that he's not really foreign because he's American. But
it's like you mentioned the camps again. Like on one of the questions we get asked all the time by American potential clients, like, "Oh, is it worth going to camps?" And it's like split down the middle. Some people go, "Oh, it's a money making scheme," and then you hear like from the horse's mouth for yourself, like, "No, we genuinely used it for like recruitment of players." And it's just like it's a bit of both. I understand like both sides of it really, because you have to make money somewhat. Yeah. But also, it's very important to get people on campus and see them and train them.
I think it's great if we get a kid to camp and we do. I thought we ran really good camps.
Yeah,
so we used it as but I think a lot of folk, the head coach never goes there. I mean, I go to camp, live on campus, and all my assistants, we all live on campus. And for that 2 weeks of the 2 camps, but again, it's all changing now because they've gone to a lot to these 1-day ID camps, or 2-day ID camps, and they're tough. But there again is a really good big centre back that's at Notre Dame now. And funny, I went to Jamie's camp. No, I didn't actually coach. I just actually watched it. And there's a big boy, Philip Quinton, that I don't think anybody really recruited. But again, here's a kid that you see he's from Portland. Didn't play academy or anything like that, And then you go back and watch him. I thought he's a kid that I really wanted. The centre back that I really did want was a kid out the national team, the under 17s, but he went to Jamie. So I go for I take the leftovers, the big bag. So I went down and spent a whole week, watched them in about 4 high school games. They had them in a week. It was a tournament thing coming up. And I watched him 4 games, and I said, I really like this kid. Good student, good athlete. So I mean, I was a great one of just. I think you find them anywhere. You'll look for them in all different places. And don't get me wrong, if somebody comes over with a foreign guy that says he's really good, you'll certainly take a look at him. But the hard thing is, that's what I would always say to them, will come to camp.
Yeah.
But I agree, a lot of camps is just money makers. The head coach never attends. He doesn't really know who's there. Yeah. You know, they come in, and maybe there'll be an odd player they'll have a look at, but they don't actually sit and study the kids and really take it seriously. I mean,
the residential camps are the best, because one day is not enough by the sounds of it.
No, it's not. You've got no idea. One day it's a real chance. If you see a kid in a one-day camp, like the kid I saw at Jamie's, a 2-day camp, and I liked him. And I just marked, I think out of Jamie's camp, there's maybe 3 guys I liked, you know. I think 2 of them are now playing for Jamie, and the other one was the big boy. And these were the ones I liked, but I went back to see that guy again, you know. Because you're not going to make your decision purely from watching him at camp. So it depends how thorough you are, and I think if you are really thorough, and also I think, you know, you talked about do you listen to it? You've got to know who to trust also.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, it's a funny one. You know who runs the camps? First Point or something? Andrew Keane. Well, do you know how Andrew Keane came to this country?
I'm going to guess through you to Cincinnati.
Yeah, because I was at Stanford at the time, and somebody he'd written to me, and he said he was, you know, he played in the Morton. He's been on the youth. They wanted to sign, but he was playing with a junior team, and he wanted to stay as an amateur. He didn't want to sign because he wanted to come to America and play. So I said, okay, well, what we'll do, first of all, you've got for Stanford, you've got to go up and sit your SATs, okay? So that you go up to the international school in Aberdeen to sit. That's where they sat their SATs. So go up and do that. And I says, if you can have a time off, I'll fix up a game for you in Aberdeen with one of my friends. I'll tell them to see if you'd be interested in playing a game. I think it was Cove Rangers before Cove were now in the second division, actually doing quite well. But it was before that. They would be a sort of maybe a junior team or something. And he went up, and my friend said, he's a good player. He'll be good. So I thought this is great. And then his academics came back, and he wasn't going to get into Stanford. And that's no disgrace. Gosh, they turned down all. Twice I lost kids at Stanford, and they get into Harvard. So it was very difficult back in the day. But anyway, Jeff Cook, you know, Jeff is now at Penn State.
Yeah.
And he was at Dartmouth, and he went. So I said to Jeff, he went to Cincinnati. He was a head coach at Cincinnati. He was going over to look at another boy in Scotland. And I said, go and make a contact with this big lad, Andrew Keane. And I said, a friend of mine, I haven't seen him personally, but a friend who I really trust said he's very good. And anyway, Cookie went to watch him play, and he ends up as a 2-time All-American at Cincinnati. So that's how he gets started. So you know, that's give him his full marks. He must have seen, well, this is an avenue for guys. The only thing is, I think a lot of people over here don't quite understand because even when I talk to them, you know, if you went on the social media when John Gallagher was coming to Aberdeen, they're all going, you know, who's this? You know, the way these social media is, he's pish, you know that. Oh God, you know, he said he played college soccer. I've got a mate that played college, and he says it's hopeless. And you know how many teams? I mean, you've got obviously Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. You've got NAIA. You've got two-year schools. There's a huge. And then even within Division 1, you've got a whole spectrum of, you know, you've got the ACC, you've got the Big Ten, you've got the Pac-12. I mean, and then you can come right down. I'm not going to name the teams at the bottom, but you know there are some that aren't as well. But there's not many now. There's not many because a lot of these teams have what they have done. They've taken over foreign players and they've done quite well. The big mistake, I think, if you're taking over foreign, you don't have too many. I think you want to. I think one or two. I would never say no if it's all right. If Andrew Keane had his academics had got through admissions, I would have been very happy to take him. We had a big boy, John Milne, who came over with a team from the Forfar area in Scotland, from Forfar. And it was a kind of youth team that came over. It was an old Scottish guy that lived in Connecticut, and he was originally from Forfar, and he took this team over every year. And we took our under-18 team down to play them from Hanover. We beat them 5-1. But again, I saw this big guy that I really liked, John Milne.
Yeah.
And I said, John's a good player. And again, I'd take a note, follow up, I'd get his thing. Comes to Dartmouth. He was a good student, and he ended up 2-time All-American. But we beat that team like 5-1. But there's always nearly in every team there's one good player, but you've got to find it.
When I'm looking at teams, there's always one player. I always find that. If you look at a decent level, obviously.
Yes. And the hard thing now, I think, Chris, is sometimes is the academies, because it's harder with the academies than it used to be with the old club teams. Because in the old club teams, there wasn't as many good players. But to be honest, in the academy teams, the good academy teams, they're all pretty good players now. I mean, I think that the standard of soccer has risen. Folks still say, well, but look how many young Americans are actually playing in the Bundesliga now.
Yeah.
I mean, and the only reason it stops them getting in, I think, to the UK is their
passports.
Is their passport. So that's the hard thing.
We've got friends at Helsingør in Denmark.
Okay. Oh yeah.
I went to visit them. We're actually doing a joint showcase with them in December to showcase like the Danish players, but they're bringing over US kids because it's easier to get them in the league straight away and then give them a platform. So like a lot of kids now obviously are missing out on the on the college because they're going straight into MLS like first teams or USL and bypassing college, but they're trying to get the guys over to Denmark and stuff like that. So if you've ever heard of the team, it's Helsingør. You should check it out.
No, I know where Helsingør. I took Notre Dame over to.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to patronise you.
we play. I've had quite a few players who played in Sweden actually.
Yeah.
From Michael Thomas was in Sweden, and who else was in Sweden? The wee lad is now coaching at Portland. It was played in Sweden, and Joe Lapira, who we talked about earlier, played in Norway for quite a while. But we went over. I mean, we played. I mean, as I say, we went over and actually played a Danish Premier League team.
Wow!
And we lost 2-1.
Yeah.
And I tell you, when we played the team. They actually. They actually a Swedish Premier League team, and we lost 2-0 there. But it was a really close game. I thought we were unlucky, but I mean, we played a lot of Danish. We played another 2 Danish second division, the league below the Premier League, and we won them both 12. So I mean, American guys are, American kids are good, In fact, I was watching a wee boy, Murphy, playing for Arbroath on. It was on the television on Friday. It was Arbroath played Partick Thistle, and I thought he's a good player. He's playing in the midfield. A wee boy called James Murphy. I don't know if you remember. It's PDA, the New Jersey youth squad.
Yeah.
The academy team. I remember there was Murphy. There was McCabe, and there was Casey, and they were really good. It was a good team. I think they maybe lost in the final that year, and they weren't like an MLS academy team, but they were very good. I ended up getting, two of them. I got Casey and McCabe, and I would have tried to get Murphy as well, but he didn't have the academics. But it's interesting because out here I watch him now playing. I said, I think I know that kid. I went up and onto my computer and said, yeah, that's Murphy, and he's playing away. He actually, I feel like he's a wee bit lost in the game. When the ball comes to him, he hardly ever turns it over. He's a very good passer, but the Scottish Championship division is fairly fit. He hits the ball, it's banged on, and he kind of, I feel he kind of looks lost a little bit. And it's funny, and
you see these players everywhere popping up. Like I used to run a PDL team down in Florida, and we played against a French centre back. And then I was watching. I've got a season ticket at Bradford City, and I was watching. The guy was warming up, and I was like, I recognise him from somewhere. Anyway, cut a long story short, he played that summer, like obviously 2 months before, in the PDL for FC Miami City, and he was at Fleetwood. Yeah. He was at Fleetwood, and you just see it all the time. And even Jack Harrison, so from obviously Wake Forest, he Bradford City under 18 said no, he's not good enough, and then obviously he'd been over at Berkshire and stuff like that, but he went to Wake Forest, obviously lasted one season and got drafted. And then everyone now, because of him playing at Leeds United last 2 years and being bought for $10 million, whatever it was, like I get phone calls from clubs all the time saying, Chris, so this American college system, tell me about it, because all these players are leaving at 18 years old, disappearing into the Bermuda Triangle of football, which is American college. And we don't know if some of them are turning out to be being sold for $10 million. Like keep us in the loop, Chris. Like, oh, now you're interested in speaking. Do you know what I mean? So like it's changing like that, because like you're saying, people are popping up everywhere, from whether it's American players or international players. But yeah, I mean, you probably see like you said on Friday night, you watch TV, spotted somebody, it just happened.
No, I mean it's funny because one of my old boys, Bright DK, Bright was he's a big. Well, both his mum and dad are Nigerian, and he was born and brought up in Oklahoma. Yeah. And Bright ended up playing for Nigeria. He scored a goal against Italy. So nobody really knew that much about him either. He was a kid that he'd sent us a tape, and I remember sending Big Brian to go and look at him, because we had a couple of other guys we'd been looking at. One didn't come; he went to Wake Forest. Another one went to Indiana. And I'm still looking for a big centre forward, and we end up getting Bright, the older brother. But the younger brother now he's with Virginia. He's at UVA. He's a sophomore at Virginia.
Okay.
And funny, I put him on Aberdeen's radar, but I just don't know if they'll be able to get a Nigerian American or an American. He's really American.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can try it. You can do.
You might get it through the Nigeria, but I don't think so. There's a boy actually that is now with Aston Villa. That I remember thinking was a really good player. I took the team to Zimbabwe, and again we played 3 Premier Zimbabwe League teams, and we went 1-1-1. We won one, lost one, and the one we lost, we should have. I thought they were the poorest team. We just lost. Anyway, it's 1-1-1. But for the team that we actually beat, there was this kid called Marvelous. And I forget his name, but he's now. I was just brought to my attention. He's with Aston Villa now. They signed him, but how they took him over, they put him to Belgium.
Okay.
So I think did he go to Club Bruges he went somewhere in Belgium for 2 years, and then gets European citizenship, and now he's over with. Yeah.
People want a straight answer, don't they? They want a straight answer of like, how do I turn professional? And it's just like you say, everything you're saying is all about chance, really. In a sense, obviously hard work and networking, but just chance. That's what it sounds like.
But you also need people that like you. You know, funny. I was reading a book there about George Best. You know, was it Sid Bishop was the scout, And it was it.
I think I read this book.
It was somebody anyway. I'm just thinking which team it was. Linfield, I think. They thought George was too young and too weak, so they didn't sign him. He'd been training with their youth squads, and this Sid Bishop wrote to Matt Busby and said, "I found you a genius." That was all the quote that says, and he said, "Well, get him over here," you know. But I've always done it, because when I was with Aberdeen, my last 5 years, another lad and I ran the youth program at Aberdeen, and it was the same. I remember we would take teams out and play up in the Highlands, you know, and every time you played a game, you looked at the other team and said, who in the other team is good? I remember we played north of Scotland. We had the under 50. It was our under 15 also doubled as the under 15 school select, you know, and we played at Elgin actually, and there was a kid scored 3 goals. We actually lost. It was a friendly, but we lost 4-3. And there was 2 guys in the team that were really impressed. Was Eric Black, and Eric's played anyway. And then there was a boy called Brian Gunn, was the goalie.
Yeah.
And I said, and I came back. I said to Fergie, to Sir Alex, you know, I said, there's 2 kids. He says, get them up with their parents the next European night, and we'll talk. I'll talk to them. And we did, and Aberdeen signed both. And Brian Gunn, of course, his son's playing for Southampton just now in goals. Angus Gunn.
Yeah.
Brian went down and played with Norwich for a long time. Actually was a manager for a little bit. And Eric Black, he was an assistant coach for nearly every team in England for a while.
I'm sure it might have been at Bradford, actually. I reckon I've come across him at some point, definitely.
He was a great player. He played. They were both. Big Brian, he was in the bench when Aberdeen beat Real Madrid in the final, the Cup Winners' Cup, and Eric scored the first goal actually. He'd only be 20 or 21 when he was. Both the boys that were that scored the goals that night were both that we picked up from the youth program. John Hewitt and they were both 20, maybe 21. Neil Simpson, Neil Cooper, the 2 midfielders would be one would be 20, one would be 22. They're all local Aberdeen. That's where I got it all started, because you were working with the youth for my last 5 years. And,
Network.
and it was great because you to pick up, and obviously the advantage of picking Alex Ferguson's brain as well, which was never a bad.
Not bad, is it?
we would play every Thursday night. We'd always play a game against a local club team in the car park, and obviously we would our team, you know, our boys, we'd always play a teams older than us. So if we were an under 16 team, we would play an under 18 team or something, or an under 15 would play an under 16 squad. So we would always look, but you know, you're always looking at your own boys, obviously, but you were always looking, was there anyone in that other team that you would invite into join our training squads, you know.
So who's the best player you've ever? Okay, who's the best player you've ever recruited? Go back to college. Who's the best player you've ever found, and why was he the best player?
A lot of different
players. I'm thinking Jesus is a lawyer. That is a bad thing.
A lot of different ones. You know, obviously, I would have said, you know, Big John Milne was very, very good at Dartmouth. You know, the one that was, and he was a Scottish boy. But I had some other very good players there, and then you'd have to. It's funny because you're going through it. At Stanford, we had a whole load of good players. Todd Donovan, I don't know if you know Todd. Todd played for a long time in the MLS. He finished off for the Galaxy for a long time. Played for New York. Played for a very short time, Toronto. But he was an exceptionally talented player, and obviously Simon Elliott, the two top New Zealand boys would be, and you would say, and Ryan Nelson were were outstanding. I had a very good goalkeeper at Stanford, Adam Zapala. Adam, he's a lawyer. He went down to, I think it was at Houston, and he was. I don't know. He just was there for a little while. But who else would have been right? There was some very, very.
What differentiated? Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say I talked with the wee lad from Maine as well. Yeah. Yep. So they would have been good. And then at Notre Dame, you've had Joe Lapira, you've had a whole pile of really good players there. Beasler, Matt Beasler, who's the captain. And then you've got Nick Beasler, his brother plays at Real Salt Lake. They both came. You had. No, I'd be missing. I really should because there's a whole pile of who's still in the league. Harry Shipp, that's with Seattle just now. Harry was a tremendous college player. He's small, never get picked in any of the youth national squads because he's a little guy. I remember talking to one of the scouts. I went along to watch Chicago Fire one day, and I watched the game, and I'm thinking, Harry's a great player. He was the best player on the field. And I went up to the scout, and I just said nicely at the end, talked to him, hello, just get his thoughts. And I said, who did you like there today? And they ran off about 4 players, but Harry wasn't one of them. And I said, well, what about the Shipp lad? He's okay. And I thought Harry was the best player in the field. And nobody's taken him. And I was quite happy with that because sometimes they get their heads all distorted when they get picked into national teams too early. I'm not a great believer in young national teams, because I think sometimes guys can think they've arrived instead of still be growing. But anyway, but Harry was. I think he would be one of the reasons when we won the national championship in 2013. I mean, he was the man that really ran a lot of the stuff that was going on. But no, I mean, it was you could go through every era and pick a whole pile of really good players.
It's pretty unfair to ask you to name one. I apologize. It was just kind of what? It's unfair to ask you to name one player, but that's.
No, I don't think I could name one player because they're all different. There's some different eras.
What's different about it? So the question I was going to ask earlier was like, what gives you what is a good college player? Like what's the difference between them and an average player? Because obviously there is something apart from talent, but they must have something else that you spot because you've seen so many players now.
I don't know. You just get a feeling. Kevin Goldthwait was another one that was a very, very good player that played for a long time in the MLS. Yeah. He was a kid that again I loved Kevin Goldthwait, but he went out for an ODP tryout. He told me when he was under 14. And didn't get picked, and then never get back into the system. Because I'm saying, how is this kid not playing in the ODP?
Yeah.
But somebody made a decision that when he was an under 14 and he never get in, and he ends up playing for a long career. And so it's so hard. You've got to keep doors open because kids mature at different levels. And you've got to have a look at the people. It's like George Best. We talked about George Best. Linfield obviously saw him as a young boy playing in their youth team or whatever, and they thought he was too small and too slight. Whereas the scout, the Sid Bishop guy, saw this kid that was tremendously talented, really a talented player, and just thought he could develop. And obviously Matt Busby agreed with him. So I think you'll find there's loads of examples of guys coming late. I mean, you look at the Vardys of the world, Harry Kanes of the world, how they were let go. I remember there's a wee boy at Aberdeen, Ian Wilson, and he he didn't. He got let go. He was on what they called the ground staff for 2 years. Got let go at 18. Then went up and played in the Highland League, which is a non-league, and played for Elgin City. And I think it was Jock Wallace was with Norwich or Leicester. Maybe it was Leicester. I think Jock was with Leicester, and they came up pre-season and played some Highland League teams just to get the guys playing some games. And he saw Ian, took him there, and Ian eventually got transferred to Everton and ended up as a Scottish international. But that was a player but again, he was a slight kid, and
like Davy Weir. Like I've got to know him through like his son and stuff like that. So he's been anyway. I talked to him a lot about it all, and he's a massive advocate of like the college system, because he obviously came through it a long time ago, but he's the prime example of kind of not being quite ready and then coming back and having a fantastic career.
No, he was. I remember he was at what was it? The name of the school?
From Falkirk.
What?
He's from Falkirk, right?
Yeah, he's from Falkirk, but he came over and played. It was in Indiana.
Evansville.
Evansville, exactly. And I remember I was at Dartmouth at the time. I told you I had the big Scottish centre half at Dartmouth. I remember his coach at Evansville calling me up and saying, "I've got this boy, David Weir, he's a wee bit homesick. Could you maybe talk to him? And you've got a big Scottish boy, could they both talk on the phone?" And we put them on the phone to talk to each other, just to make David feel at home, because he was a little bit homesick. It's a long way from
David's son Evansville now,
What?
David's son is at Evansville.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's followed his footsteps.
Oh, there you go. Well, that was I remember, and that's the only time I've ever spoken to David Weir, just a little bit. And I said, "This is a great guy. I think this is a great opportunity for you. You can do everything, and you can still go back." And then he went back and played for Falkirk. Then he went to Hearts, and then he went down to Everton. So it just shows you it's a long. Then still playing at 40 something for Rangers. It was. No, I've watched his career with great interest, because obviously from knowing he was a college player. So
he's all American in college. I'm not sure how many times, but he obviously came back. But I speak to him all the time. So he wants to kind of help lads who come back from the US. He's like, he was at Brighton as the loan manager the last time I spoke to him. But I'm not sure where it might be still there. But he's all about trying to help the lads coming back, because there's so many good players who are kind of finishing and not getting the MLS and stuff like that. And like I said, he's popping up in different leagues everywhere. So he's interested.
Yeah. Well, you should, next time you speak to him, ask him if he remembers calling to talk to a guy at Dartmouth. I know it was myself, and there was a big Scottish boy, John Milne.
I will do.
Just ask him if he remembers that, because he would just have been a freshman at Evansville at that time, so it is quite...
You never had that phone call and left, went back home and never kind of cracked on, didn't get extra 4 years development, so to speak, and then his life could be completely different now. So it's like anything in life, the butterfly effect, isn't it?
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, it's like, even how I ended up coming over here, to end up coaching. I'd been a year in Zimbabwe, and I really enjoyed coaching in Zimbabwe. That's what made me decide I like this.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there was a job possibly waiting on me. I got a letter from Alec, saying Sir Alex saying there was could be a job at Aberdeen for me. Then I get in, and somebody gave me a call, because I used to come out in my off seasons and coach in the summer. With
the US.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, and I really enjoyed it. I coached in Seattle, I coached in Portland, I coached all over, and then I even talked Aberdeen into letting me come out and play a season in the NASL in San Antonio. So I'd always had this, and I saw it, and then you saw these kids coming over, and that's it. Somebody just called me up. I literally get back, the day I get back from Zimbabwe, I got a phone call, and somebody said, have you ever thought of coaching in college? I think somebody I'd coached with in the summer camp. He said, I think you'd be really good at coaching in college. And I says, no. I said, what's it all about? He says, well, put in a resume to Princeton, and Princeton flew me over.
Really?
And I remember they flew me over. This would be back in '84, I suppose, sometime in '84. Because I'd just come back from Zimbabwe, and it was one of these things. I was blown away. I was there for about 3 days in New Jersey, but I was blown away with the university for a start, the facilities, and even just talking to the boys. It sounded like a real, for me, a great halfway house between teaching and, because I didn't know whether I was going to coach or I was going to teach, full time. And I said, this sounds really, really interesting. And anyway, long and the short of it, I didn't get the job. It was Bobby Bradley got the job.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But they were great. They called me up after they told me that I wasn't getting the job. They called me up about 5 days later and said, it was a very difficult decision. We think you would be a great college coach, because it really was a hard decision. He said, so why not, if you decide to pursue another one, you please use us as a reference. And
very good reference.
and that was, the next one was Dartmouth.
Yeah.
And I got the Dartmouth job, and yeah, it was great. Bobby Bradley and I became really good friends because of that, in a funny way. Because
I crossed his path with Chicago Fire, and he gave me a hairdryer once, and I never ever spoke to him again. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was actually not even playing. I was with the PDL thing, but I was I entered there was a game on, but I entered a certain area. And I didn't even know I was in in a certain, not VIP, but he basically just told me, get the F out. He probably just in front of everyone, even people in the crowd were looking. I was like, I shrunk. I'm 6'5". I was about 2 foot. Okay, that's the sort of guy.
Was he coaching at the time? No.
Yeah. He was managing during the game.
He would just be uptight.
Oh yeah, I know. I just found it funny. I never ever.
He's a pretty good guy. He went to Princeton. Of course, he was an alumnus. He was a Princeton alumni, and
that helped him then.
Because when we went there, because I think Dartmouth was the bottom team in the league, and I think Princeton was the second bottom. I think the last 6 years, I think we shared the titles.
Yeah, well, I get asked all the time. Sorry to interrupt. I get asked all the time. I give you an example. Yesterday, a guy who won the Champions League with Man United in '99. He asked me. He goes, "Chris, I want to go coach in the US as a college coach. How do I do it?" And I'm like, honestly, I don't. Unless you got a passport and visa, I don't even know the answer for people. I get asked probably at least twice a day. But this guy in particular, yesterday, I'm thinking he's got a good background, like you said. Then you got flown out. You had a good background. That's probably one of the reasons why. But I don't even know what answer to give them. It's
I think it'd be. I don't know. There's a lot of folk. It is interesting. How do you get over now? Because when I would go there, folks said, "What are you going to America for?" It's like, "Oh, you must be crazy." Yeah. And I said, I think anyway. It's funny how you make decisions, and it's all my kids went. Two went to Dartmouth and one went to Stanford, and they get. Tommy's He's a pediatrician. He's a doctor, and Jen and Jamie are both coaching. And in fact, the pediatrician one, he runs an organisation called Grassroots Soccer.
Yeah, I saw that actually. Is HIV prevention something?
Yeah, he goes back out to Africa. Because what he did after he finished an undergraduate at Dartmouth, he went out to Africa to teach and play a little bit. He wasn't a bad player, Tommy. And anyway, he went out there, and a lot of the kids, it was that year when we were in Africa, he was maybe 12 or 13, and he played in the teams, under 14 team. And when he went back, after he graduated from that, would be about 10 or maybe more years later, about 10 years later, a lot of the kids that he knew had died for HIV. So when he went back to Dartmouth to medical school, and then they'd to come up, when he was doing his residency, they'd to come up with an idea that would help society at large. And he came up with the idea of using soccer to educate young Africans about HIV.
Wow.
And now it's a huge organisation. I mean, he's back and forward to Africa a lot.
Whereabouts in Africa does he do this projects? Whereabouts in Africa does he do the projects?
Well, it's mainly, obviously, because Zimbabwe is Bulawayo, South Africa, Bulawayo. These are and Zambia.
Yeah.
These are the main, but they share their curriculum with a lot of other organizations, but that's their main organizations. So he's really into it now. They test them.
It's fantastic.
It is. He's been. I mean, I remember when he started it. He got a grant after he did his residency to work in San Francisco on the AIDS thing. So then the whole thing started to come together for him. So he's into that in a big way now, and it's his life. I mean, he doctored when he started it off. It was a kind of part-time thing, and he was doctoring, but then he doesn't do any. To be honest, it's a lot of fundraising now. It's a lot of fundraising. So
yeah, all three. Is it 3 kids you've got?
Three, and they're all somehow involved in soccer. They're all.
I was going to say that.
And I don't think I ever pushed them. I think they could say that.
He's just around it. Obviously, it's just naturally around it.
You're around it. And college campuses are a good place to be around sports. Do you know what I'm saying? They were mainly brought up in Hanover, New Hampshire, at Dartmouth.
Yeah. And
it's a lovely little town. Obviously, high school soccer was important. Was it great? It wasn't bad, but it was a very good. And then we so I could employ an assistant. We started a thing called Lightning Soccer, and it was a youth program. We had clinics through the spring, and then we had the under 16 team and under 19 team, and then we introduced under 14 teams, and then we had all these young clinics under 8, under 10s, under 12s. I didn't believe in putting them into travel teams. It's so sad. We just kept it all local, and we'd do an odd with another area not too far away. We'd have a little sort of jamboree,
Yeah.
And I mean, as I say, he produced a lot of good players. I mean, well, Jamie, that's how Jamie came through and ended up, playing at Stanford and, being a 2-time All-American at Stanford and playing the MLS. And, and you don't need to have all these, you don't need to be playing big-time football. You want to be playing. You don't want to be sitting in your mum's car for 3 hours there, 3 hours back, or even.
Not to be controversial, but what do you think about all from the outside, not an outsider's point of view, but I've seen all these DAs and ECNLs and just everything popping up. I was speaking to a potential player the other day, and he lives in northern Florida somewhere, but it's 4.5 hours to the nearest development academy side, and his dad's been doing that 4.5 hours each way for this, and I'm just like. I mean, it can't be sustainable. Surely, it's so disjointed. But what do you think about it?
It gets harder once they get older. They really want to be playing with and against good players. I think that's, and if they're talented, so it's how do you do it? And if your location is where you're isolated, how do you get it? It's a real dilemma. And again, but you could come from one of these little areas, and if there's a good coach there, that's going to help the environment. You know what I'm saying? So you do want. I think when they're young, they just want to play a lot, but I think it's great if they can also get good, good coaching. No, it doesn't need to be fancy coaching, but somebody's just giving kids really good foundations, making them play the right way, make them pass, make them look for space, and it can all be done almost in game type things. And I think if you get them doing that, but there comes a time it's difficult. The big thing is a lot of these good residential schools now, and I think there is a time when that's not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? If the kid's really into it,
yeah.
the kid's got to be really into it. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But I don't think you need to have them. It doesn't need to. You certainly don't need to be travelling around when they're under 10s, even under 12s. You know, I mean, even under 14. Well, maybe under 14s you can start. But
there's a sense of desperation, I think, from the parents, and they're all, especially the US ones, like, he's got to play D1 and we've got to go do this. He's got to play a development academy. We have to do that. We have to ignore, like, there's just no right answer. That's the problem. Everyone's kind of like giving like one track only.
No, we've got a couple of players that are really, I think, good players at Notre Dame just now, who were both cut from their development academies at under 14.
Oh, really?
And they're both really good. And then I told you, there's a big centre back. He never played. He actually went down to look at the academy, but he just didn't like the environment. So I think he got offered. They said they would take him in, but he just went back to his club team.
Yeah.
So I think.
It sounds like you can be from any club at all, from anywhere, as long as you've got the right coach who's got connections. But also, if you're reaching out to the right schools, to kind of backtrack what you said earlier, like if someone contacts you guys and comes to your residential camp,
yeah,
and you like them, you'll recruit them. And then there's other coaches there, you know the people. So if it's not quite right for you, you'll give somebody else a call, and so on and so on. It's just all about like the world is marketing yourself, but getting the right sort of guidance wherever you are.
Yeah, I think I always, because I would quite often find out that the schools I've been at, that maybe I was recruiting a kid and then it wasn't going to work out, often for academics or for finances. But then you try and help that boy find the right match for him.
Not many would, Bobby. Not many would at all. Like a lot of people do that.
Well, I think when you do things like that, it's like everything else. It comes back to help you down the line.
Yeah, karma.
Because people talk, and people talk, and you can either get a lot of good vibes coming your way, or you can get a lot of bad vibes. And at the end of the day, and maybe it's because I always liked to. I wanted to win. I make no. But at the same time, I think one of the attractions of being a college coach is that you feel you help kids grow up. You're helping young people grow up along the way. It's not like a professional team where you're not really worried too much. You're just trying to win, and if you don't win, you're getting the sack.
Yep.
In college, there was never that same pressure. You in the schools I was at, I knew I was giving them, regardless of whether they're great players or they're not great players, they're going to get a great education. And if you've created the right environment, you're going to help them grow up to be able to handle success, to be able to handle failure, and to be good teammates. And what better going into your job somewhere, because you're going to meet failure, you're going to meet success, and you've got to handle them both the right way. And you need to be a good teammate for all your workmates. And if you're not a good teammate, then it's how you make them. I think it's great. You make them sure they tidy up. I think one of the best compliments I remember getting. We played this team called Formartine United, which would be a junior. They're a Highland League team over here. And I remember one of the nicest compliments I got was after the game. The wee man came running out. The wee sort of grounds guy came out, and he got onto our bus. And he just said, "I just want to thank you guys." He said, I think you left the dressing room," he called it, the dressing room cleaner than when you found it.
Yeah.
And I said, that is what I call, and it was an old guy at Aberdeen that taught me that, Teddy Scott, Teddy was an old guy. He actually got the UEFA award. Fergie loved him. And Sir Alex wouldn't. They actually did a testimonial for Teddy Scott at Aberdeen, and Sir Alex wouldn't come back till he had he could bring his full Manchester United team up to Pittodrie.
Nice.
So it was, but that was Teddy Scott taught me that, because my last 2 years at Aberdeen, I had a bad back, a really bad back. I had to get back surgery, and then there was a lot of complications came into it. But through that 2 years, I used to go with the second team, and Teddy would take the second team. And I just learned so much from that guy, about handling, how to handle young men, And if you ever see any of the guys, usually, I think it was Gordon Strachan said the famous thing, if they ever sacked Teddy Scott, they'd have to sign another 5 guys to make up for the work he does, So that was...
It's respect for what you do. Like, most people are not going to turn professional. So you literally, you're preparing everyone else for the real world. So like just shaking hands when you see somebody, eye contact, like cleaning up after yourself, even like respect to like everyone I kind of spoke to about you, like, oh, the boss, like, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's just respect for people, and it's not about like being higher than somebody. It's just respect just gets you so far with everything. If you treat people well, I'm a firm believer that comes back to you. The karma of that comes back.
They all called me boss, and I don't know where that came at Notre Dame, and I certainly, I always said to the guys, I don't care what you call me. But I said, I'll know the way you call me it. I said, it's the way you can call me sir, all you like, but I still might not trust you.
Yeah.
You can call me Bobby. It's up to you. You've got to be comfortable. But they all, everybody called me boss. And it came early on in my time. I think it was I'm not quite sure who it was. I won't hang it to anyone, but someone came up with it a long time ago. And it stuck. And I never ever worried. They could call me what, but I know how they'll call me it.
Yeah.
Brian McClare came over and did our clinic in the spring. We used to have a spring clinic for youth and high school coaches at Notre Dame, and he came over, and it was quite good. One of the people, because we'd have a dinner, and then after the dinner we'd always be a question and answer. Let the punters ask questions. Anyway, somebody said, because he'd coached it, both our men's and our women's team, and done showed some of the stuff they did at Manchester United. And one of them said, how do you compare the Notre Dame boys to your guys at Manchester United? And he said, his answer was, they're every bit as good, and in some cases better. And I thought, he's being nice, being a very nice to his hosts, So I got him later. I says, Brian, what did you mean? Were you just being polite to us? I appreciated your comments. He says, no. He said, it's interesting. He said, every one of your boys is going to leave Notre Dame. It's very perceptive. And Brian was a smart guy, actually. I think he'd been at Glasgow University. He was with Motherwell before he went to Celtic. I don't know if he finished when he went to Europe. But he said, he said, every one of your guys is going to leave Notre Dame thinking they were a success. Your first guy and your last guy. Because they're going to walk out with a Notre Dame degree. He said, with us, after a few months, suddenly the squad will start to realise as they get older around this age that we're really only looking at one or maybe 2 guys.
Yeah.
So if you're taking, or maybe looking at best 10% of the squad, and he said the other 90% are going to suddenly know they're just keeping these guys warm. And they're going to leave thinking they were a failure. And I thought that was a very interesting way to put it. Our guys, they obviously all want to play, but they're not all going to play for us. But at the end of the day, when they walk out and get their degree, they're going to feel they were a success.
Yeah.
And they leave on a very...
How you treat them in between as well. Obviously, if they're not going to play, it's how they're feeling. Because a lot of people can make the dressing room, changing room toxic. They're not playing. Yes. It is. So it's like if you kind of got them in position where they're positive to the team, even though they haven't played a minute, then you're onto a winner, really.
Yeah. No. And I think a lot of guys would come to Notre Dame or at Stanford. They're possibly not going to play as freshmen. They're not going to play a lot as a freshman, and they've got to handle that. And that's always an interesting. And some eventually are not going to play at all. I told you that Roger Levesque. He was a great player. You talk about good players. I mean, Roger was a terrific player. There's a kid from Maine. Nobody rated, and he ended up playing for the US Olympic team. And that's where he actually tore his ACL and playing in Spain. And that set him back actually a little bit. But Roger was somebody that I wasn't even sure was going to play. Certainly I didn't think he'd play as a freshman. But he came from Maine. Yeah. He's not played against big caliber soccer at that time. He was obviously the All-American from Maine. But there you are. You suddenly see this kid's got it, and he comes right through and ends up playing for a long career in the pros. So, did you never ever see? There was a great. He scored a goal. I think it was against Portland, and they had behind the goals. It went the rounds, the social media for a bit. I don't know how long ago it was. You know how they have the things behind the goal with the So he went up and he goes on it and he does it as if he's going into scuba diving. He goes on it.
Yeah.
And he goes backwards over it.
I think I saw that actually. And
he became a scuba. In his last game, the whole of they get big crowds at Seattle. They all had cutouts of Roger. The whole place. He became a cult hero. He's a different cat, but good player and a good guy. I think he's now onto these huge sort of 100-mile runs and stuff now. I think that's what somebody one of the boys.
Is that the nearest Walmart in Maine?
yeah. He runs back from. I think he's still somewhere in Seattle. When I go out, I'll try and find him if he's there. But that's another great thing, actually. It's the number of guys that are the sort of sports director at sports at Sac Republic. That's Todd Donovan's there. And Taylor Graham is one of the top administrators now with Seattle. With Seattle, former players, two former Stanford boys. So that's what I say. It's nice when you see really smart guys, good guys now becoming involved in the game, and not just as coaches, but the number of guys that played that are involved that are now coaching, and I know they'll coach the right way. Brian at Georgetown, Jamie at UW and Chad at Notre Dame. You're really happy that all these guys are running good.
How do you think? Right, I'll keep it short now because probably you probably need to go. So I apologise for keeping it so long. It's so interesting. How do you think college soccer is going to go? Because obviously the 10-month season thing's been mentioned from Sash, and but how do you see it going? Yourself?
See, I was never a big advocate for the 10-month season because you weren't playing that. I see the positives of it, but I must say I really liked the spring. We took the spring very, very seriously.
Yeah.
We really worked. I would say in some ways we worked harder in the spring because you had the early part where you could really work a lot on getting a good fitness base, good strength base, and then you played all the games in the spring. And I loved the spring games. We would often play 2 games in one day, 2 70-minute games, and I would split the squads because through that week I always made sure I had a big enough squad for the spring that I had maybe well over 20 players.
Yeah.
And I would, some of that would be seniors that would want to stay on, and we would train in these 2 teams, and then on the weekend we played the 2 games in the one day. I would, you just play one team, and you'd only bring somebody off the other team onto that game if there was an injury, and then you'd play the other team. So you'd have two separate teams. And I just love the teaching. Everybody's playing.
Yeah.
And that's even your last player in the squad is playing a full 70 minutes, and he's playing for a team. And I just love that. The only games we didn't was when we every year, I think for the last 14 years, Mexico have sent their under-20s. I don't know if you knew that. They come every year.
Yeah.
And of the 14 times, they've only won 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Now, there's been a few ties, but it's that's the only. I play the strongest. I've always played the strongest team because they're good. I mean, you've got a lot of very, very, very good. Chicharito, the little Mexican forward. Because we had a great photo of him playing. We beat them, I think, 1-0 the year he came. I remember telling Sir Alex to ask him because he was at Manchester United. I said, ask him if he remembers playing at Notre Dame. And I asked him also if he says yes, ask him if he remembers the score. But I like the spring because it's a time when it's just pure teaching.
Yeah.
And you don't really worry very much about the scores. You don't pick teams for the scores. I feel if you go, and I thought that was a great way to. That's when I felt we get the most improvement out of boys, and we found out really who we had for the next season before I saw my freshmen coming in.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really good
thing. It makes sense what you're saying. I've never really heard this side of it before.
No, funny. I've often thought of writing to it, but then I always feel I'm the one guy that wants to hold it because, and maybe there's other people. A lot of people that are close to me know this is one of the reasons. Whereas if we go the other way, all we're doing is we can also force some, because it's going to be more money for the university. You're going to have all sorts of facilities, things that you're going to have to deal with. Where's your support staff coming from? Your physiotherapists, because they're maybe doing us mainly one, then they're doing lacrosse in the spring.
Yeah.
And I think you could force some people to decide that they're going to cut soccer. And if we lost one team, for me, that's failure because of the move. That would be a failure. But I also think for the players, you make everybody really feel a part of it, and you teach everybody. But it's hard work, and you've got to get it into the players' heads that the spring is the most important time for them to stake a place for the next season. And I found our guys were really into the spring, very, very much so. And it was a very and I was very into it, as was my staff. So if we're into it, they're into it. I do see that we actually put up a thing, and we sent it. I sent it to the ACC, where if you did a few things, if we started a little bit earlier, and then the one thing that I never thought was great is a conference tournament. I just thought it was a whole lot of games coming up at a very short time. I would have done it. See, if you did away with that, in the ACC, we would have lengthened our season by 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If we started a week earlier, you could almost. We reckon that you would hardly have you could play the whole season without any midweek games almost. And you could just start a little bit earlier. And then you could finish when you finish, and take away the season. Because I thought it was just crazy that the tournament at the end of the season, when you're suddenly you don't know who you're playing to the last minute, so it's really difficult to try to get travel arrangements.
Yeah.
And then you don't know who you're going to play the next till you see if you win.
Yeah. Booking hotels, all that.
And it's it costs you a fortune making these last minute travel arrangements. So I would be against it. I see the advantages. It would be nice to play, but we are actually playing year round. We're maybe not playing competitively year round.
Yeah.
But you're actually, we are at the moment playing year round. It's how you make it.
But not all schools are, Bobby. Not all schools are playing spring or taking it serious. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Okay, the top schools are. I'm talking about when we start looking at other divisions, other associations, everything like that. Some people just don't take it serious. That's the problem.
And if they don't take it seriously, that's I think that's a problem. And there's no question if you played it the other way. I mean, I think Sasha's been a big driver, and Sasha's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
So it's not like, but I mean, Sasha, he really, and I know why he really got into it initially. I know they're making all the things that it's going to be better for the athletes and all the, physically better for the athletes. There's going to be less, they talk about, well, there's going to be less time missed, class time missed. But you look at all the games just now, when are they playing all the games? Most of the games are on a Friday, aren't they?
Yeah.
Now, if they really wanted to not miss classes, it would either be on a Saturday or a Sunday. So why do they play them on a Friday?
Why
it gets a better crowd, it gets a better atmosphere.
Yeah.
But if they honestly wanted to look, if they were thinking right now to look after the athletes' well-being, then they would play them all either Saturday or Sunday. They don't. They play them on Friday night. And don't get me wrong, I love Friday night games. They're always, especially if in Nora Day, if we played Friday nights before the football on a Saturday, it was a sellout crowd. So that these are bad. But anyway, I mean, I get torn, but I think Sasha began thinking. We played Maryland in the final of the NCAA's. No, I think it was 5,000 at the game, and Sasha quite rightly thought that this place, it was 5,000. It was played in Philadelphia's their stadium, and 5,000 doesn't look great. They had them all mainly in one side, but the other sides were all empty. And I think he feels, you watch the lacrosse championship. Why can we not be like that if we play them in June? But the only hard thing for us, I feel lacrosse final is possibly the pinnacle of lacrosse soccer at the moment. College soccer will never be the pinnacle because we've got Champions League, we've got La Liga, we've got Bundesliga, we've got the MLS, we've got World Cups. College soccer is it's a way down
the ladder, yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because you even look at college basketball. It's almost as big as the pros.
Yeah, I prefer it.
Yeah, so you're suddenly in this thing, whereas college soccer isn't that way. Because the thing is, people that are into soccer, and there's a lot of people into soccer, they don't just even look at the MLS. They're looking at the English league. They're looking at the Bundesliga. They're looking at the Mexican league. The Hispanic people will be looking a lot at the Mexican league. So you've got a huge amount of competition for us.
But my 2 pennies? No one really cares what I think, but I've always thought, why don't they do the NCAA championship, national championship final on the weekend of the convention? Right?
Completely correct.
Because there's how many people go to the convention, and how many people for a Saturday night would go to, or a Friday night, whichever. You got a free ticket, or it's going to cost you $10, whatever. Go to a game. I can guarantee you, I would definitely go to that.
Yeah. Well, there's either that one, and I think that's a really good suggestion, and the other one is obviously to have it when they used to have the Disney tournaments. Where you're getting a lot of youngsters that are interested in soccer have a night when there's no soccer, and they as you say, they get tickets, part of the thing, coaches. You've got all the college coaches or something like that as well. But your idea of doing it on the when it's the convention is also a very good.
There's 50,000 people, I think, minimum, who go to that convention.
Yeah. No. So surely, even if you're getting half of these. And plus, one of the things I often feel is quite difficult. I mean, I know when both times I've been in the finals, we would come back right after the final, and we would go right into exams.
Yeah.
So for a start, we're dealing, and then the other students that might come to see you play there, and if you made it somewhere in a holiday time, through that holiday time, and that's why I thought of the Disney tournament being a good place.
Yeah.
Because or a tournament around that after the exams are finished.
Yeah.
And I think it would be good for the guys to delay it just a couple of weeks.
Well, the convention idea, basically, you got the draft as well during the weekend.
The draft.
And obviously you got the combine the week before and stuff like that. So there's something would have to change, but it's just...
No, it's not bad for the draft, because you see you'd have all the MLS coaches would be there as well. And it would let them obviously see the best teams.
Yeah, if some of the combine players were going to play in the final, so to speak, then they would have been in the combine. It's like, you know what I mean? So anyway,
it's going to give them a real combine, because it's a serious game. It's a real game. The folk are playing. Combines are a little fun, a little bit strange. So.
An abrupt start and an abrupt finish. So sorry about that. Like I said, it was more of a phone call, kind of catch up. He knew it was being recorded, but yeah, we didn't really run it like an actual interview thing. So yeah, that's it. So if you've made it this far, well done. Hopefully you've gained a lot from it. Really, really enjoyed interviewing him. I've listened to it back a few times actually. Pulled a few things out of it, but yeah, awesome. So that's it. That's the episode 1 over and done with. Hopefully there'll be many more in the future. If you can subscribe, leave a review, we'd really, really appreciate it. You can find me on Twitter at Chris_M_Cousins. You can find me on Facebook and on all the rest, and LinkedIn and stuff. So cool, awesome. Well, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for listening, and here's the next time.